Alright, here's the thing. You might be wasting tons of Primogems every time you're pulling on a banner in Genshin Impact because you're doing it wrong. So, in this Genshin guide, we're gonna go over how exactly every banner in Genshin Impact works, which secret mechanics there are that the game doesn't tell you about, and how you can use that to make sure that you get the 5-star characters and weapons that you really want for your account. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it. Okay, let's start right from the beginning and first of all talk about which types of banners there even are in Genshin, and then we go over them and all their details one by one. First off, and this is usually the big one that's being advertised everywhere, that would be the 2 limited time character banners. For every Genshin version and every update, we get 2 phases, and each of these phases will have 2 limited time character banners on offer, those then being available for 3 weeks each. And while those limited time event banners swap over time, there is also a different type of banner that is called standard banner, which is always the same and provides always the same weapons and characters. But wait, there's more because we have 2 more types of banners, those being the limited time weapon banner and the so-called Chronicled Wish. We'll go over exactly what you can get out of all these banners here in a second. Just before we get into that, one thing you need to keep in mind, and that is very important, is how you can pull on all those types of banners. See, in Genshin Impact, there are 2 currencies that are being used to pull on banners. Those being the Acquaint Fates, or the blue ones as I like to call them, and the Intertwined Fates, those look more pinkish. Now, the Acquaint Fates can only be used to pull on the standard banner, whereas the Intertwined Fates can be used to pull on any type of banner except the standard banner, meaning they give you much more options. But alright now, with that out of the way, let's now talk about the pulling mechanics, how exactly this works, and what the secret things are that the game doesn't really tell you, starting out with the standard banner, and then we discuss the differences that there are between the standard and all the other banners. Alright, so the standard banner. What can you get out of it? First of all, for every type of banner, there is a button that you can click to get a list of all the items that are potentially available through that banner. However, now that you're here already, why don't I just quickly tell you? On the standard banner, you can achieve a select few of 5-star characters as well as 5-star weapons. Those characters being Deya, Diluc, Jean, Keqing, Mona, Chi-Chi, and Tighnari. However, there's not only 5-star items of course. From the standard banner you can also get all the 4-star characters in the entire game, as well as a select number of 3-star and 4-star weapons. Again, if you want to have a full list of all the characters and details, you can always go into the game, click on the info panel, and read through the list yourself. Now, one thing that is extremely important to mention about the standard banner is, this banner will always be there. In contrast to all the other banners, this is not time limited, so no matter if you start playing now or in a year from now, there's never anything that is being taken away from it. But speaking of pulling, how about we now finally talk about the numbers? What are the chances of getting each and every individual item that you personally want? See, in Genshin Impact, when you pull on a banner, for each and every individual pull, you have a 0.6% chance to get a 5-star item, as well as a 5.1% chance to get a 4-star. And then when you do a pull and you don't get a 5-star and you don't get a 4-star out of it, then you will always receive a 3-star item instead, this then being one of the 3-star weapons. Now, remember how I just said you have a chance of getting a 5-star item or a 4-star item? Well, the reason for that is, if you get lucky and you really end up having the 5-star pull, then on the standard banner, you have equal chances of getting any of the listed 5-star items. So, with there being 7 individual 5-star characters and 10 more 5-star weapons, the chances of getting any individual 5-star item that you want are pretty slim. Same goes by the way for the 4-stars. If you get a 4-star pull, you have equally high chances to get any of the 4-star characters or any of the 4-star weapons that are listed on the standard banner. So much for how the standard banner works. However, before we go on and talk about the limited time character banners, I need to mention a very fundamental and super important mechanic of pulling on banners in Genshin Impact, and that would be the pity system. First of all, what is pity in the first place? See, as I just said, the chances of getting a 4 or 5-star item are relatively slim for any individual pull. The pity system is a mechanic in the game that is applied to make sure that after a certain number of pulls, if you continue being unlucky, you will be guaranteed to get a 4 or 5 star item. See, when pulling on a banner, there are 2 milestones that you need to keep in mind, those being the so-called soft pity and the hard pity. Hard pity is very simple to explain. This is the point where if until then you haven't gotten a 5-star item, you will be guaranteed to get one on your next pull. The number for this on the standard banner is 90 pulls. So if you haven't gotten a 5-star in your first 89 pulls, the 90th will definitely be a 5-star. Soft pity though is a bit more complicated and there aren't even official information out there on it, so everything I'm about to say is deducted from the community themselves, but let me just say one thing, they are pretty precise with this. Soft pity, in contrast to hard pity, which is at 90 pulls as we just said, soft pity is at pull 70. And what that means is that from the soft pity moment on, from pull 70, your chances of getting a 5-star item will increase continuously with every consecutive pull until you get to the hard pity threshold. So all in all, what that means is most people will receive a 5-star way before they reach 90 pulls because due to the increasing pity, it's quite unlikely that you really get so unlucky that you have to wait till the maximum of 90. Also, of course, once you then get a 5-star item, all the pulls are being reset to 0 and you start from scratch. As for 4 stars, there is also a pity system. This one though only has a hard pity and that is after 10 pulls. So if you don't get a 4-star for 9 pulls in a row, then the 10th pull will be a 4-star item and then it will also reset to 0. Now, with all that being said, you might be wondering, well, Blacky, I didn't count how many times I pulled. Is there any way that I can find out? And in fact, there is. As you see right here in Genshin Impact, you have a pull history that you can open up to see how many pulls on which banner you already did, so you can get an idea of where in the pity system you stand at the moment. With the fact in mind that the normal banner never changes, this means that over time you're pretty much guaranteed to get all the items that are on offer there just by putting in the wishes that you get over time. Which is also why I have this super important tip for you now before we go on, and that is never ever ever use Primogems to buy the Acquaint Fates to pull on the standard banner because it is not time limited. Over time, you will get all the stuff there anyway. Rather save your Primogems to go for the intertwined fates that you need to pull on the limited time banners that are not going to return so quickly. And now that we speak about those limited time banners already, how about we talk about them, starting out with the limited time character banners. Alright, now let's talk about the big stars of the show, that being the limited time character banners, which is probably also what you're gonna spend most of your wishes on. Each Genshin update features 4 limited time character banners, 2 in the first phase, 2 in the second phase, both of these phases taking 3 weeks, so a whole update is always a period of 6 weeks. Out of those limited time event banners, what you can get is, of course, the limited time 5-star character on the banner, you know, the big star that you probably want. But in addition to that, you can get everything that you could also get on the standard banner that we talked about earlier, except 3 4-star characters, those being Kaya, Lisa, and Amber. And what also needs to be mentioned here is, on every limited time 5-star character banner, you also have 3 featured 4-star characters, and the drop chance for these 4-star characters is drastically higher on this banner than the chance of getting any other 4-star. With that in mind, you might be wondering, wait, if I can get everything from the standard banner here too, including the 5 stars, then how does this work? Isn't the 5-star here the limited 5-star character on the banner? Well, the answer is sadly no, and to explain how exactly this works, I need to introduce you to another system, this being the so-called 50-50. See, for the limited time character banner, the same pulling rules apply as for the standard banner. Each and every individual pull is a 0.6% chance to get a 5-star, a 5.1% chance to get a 4-star, and L to get 3 stars. Now, remember how I also here said you have a chance of getting a 5-star, a chance of getting a 4-star, not the chance of getting the 5 or 4-star. What that means is, if you pull on a limited time event character banner and you get that golden 5-star pull, then you only have a 50% chance of this pull actually being the featured 5-star character, and if it isn't, then you're gonna get one of the 5-star characters from the standard banner. This can naturally be extremely frustrating because after you put in so many polls to getting that character that you really want, and then it turns out to be just Diluc or any other character from the standard banner, this can hurt really badly. And by the way, the same also goes for the 4-star characters on the limited time banner. Each time you get a 4-star item that is not one of the featured 4 stars, the next time you get a 4-star on those banners, you're guaranteed to get one of the 3 that are featured on the banner. Now, before we go on now, there is one thing that is incredibly important to mention for me because I think a lot of players still get this wrong. I read it in the comments all the time, and that goes back to the pity system again. Remember how I told you about the soft pity and the hard pity, you know, the 70 pulls, the 90 pulls, and then now about the 50-50? Well, one thing that you definitely need to keep in mind is that any pity that you have acquired on the current banner, if that banner ends, will carry on over to the next one. So if you, for example, pull 50 times on this limited time character banner and you don't get the character out of it, then when the next banner comes around and you start pulling on that, the game will remember that you already put in 50 pulls, meaning you're already at 50 pity. And the same goes, by the way, for the 50-50. So if you lost your 50-50 on the last banner, then you're guaranteed to get the limited time 5-star character on your first 5-star pull on this banner. One thing I should probably also mention is that every banner has its own independent pity counter, meaning the pity counted on the standard banner versus the pity counted on the limited time event banner. Those are completely detached from one another. You could be, for example, at 80 pity on the normal banner and at 20 pity on the limited time event banner. And both these pities, of course, do carry over to the next patch. Okay, so much for the characters. Let's now talk about the limited time weapon banner system because this is quite unique and doesn't work the same way as the character banners. First of all, what can you get out of it? Well, pretty straightforward, right? Each patch phase has one limited time weapon banner, and this banner always features 2 5-star weapons as well as a ton of 4 stars. Then again, everything from the standard banner, all the weapons and the character, excluding Kaya, Lisa, and Ember, and then also some special 4-star weapons that are not included in the standard banner. Now, when it comes to pulling on the weapon banner, the numbers and the mechanics in comparison with the character banners are pretty different here. Remember how for the character banner, when you get the 5-star pull, you always have a 50-50% chance of getting the featured character or one of the other 5 stars? Well, for the weapon banner, it's not really like this. Here, when you get the 5-star pull, you have a 75% chance of getting a featured 5-star weapon and only a 25% chance of getting a 5-star from the standard banner. This goes both for the 5-star as well as for the 4 stars. Also, the pity numbers are a bit different because for the weapons, the soft pity doesn't start at 70 but already at 65, and the hard pity, which was at 90 with the character banners, is at 80 already here, so you don't need as many pulls to reach the pity here. But now, here is the big difference. Remember how I said with the limited time weapon banner, you have a 75% chance of getting a featured 5-star? Well, this is the thing. Unlike with the character banners, here if you get the 5-star pull and you get a featured 5-star item, it is not guaranteed to be the weapon that you actually want. It could also be the other featured weapon. And this is exactly where we get into the so-called fate point system. As you will remember, before you start pulling on a weapon banner, you need to select one of the 2 featured weapons, which is then the one that you actually want to have. From this point on, when you pull on the weapon banner, each and every time you get a 5-star that is not the one that you selected, you will get a so-called fate point. So if you fail to get your desired weapon in the first attempt, then you get 1 fate point. If then again you fail to get it at the second attempt, you get another fate point, and only if you have those 2 fate points already, and then you get another 5-star pull on that weapon banner, only then are you guaranteed that this will be the weapon that you actually selected. This is, by the way, also the reason why we Genshin YouTubers always tell you to not wish on the weapon banner until you have all the characters that you want, because they are so much of a Primogem dump. And unfortunately, that's not even where it ends, because the most predatory system about this weapon banner is that yes, the pity that you're currently at with the weapon banner, this does carry over to the next weapon banner, but the fate points that you've already accumulated, they will be lost after this weapon banner timeframe ends. Whew, that was quite a lot of info on the limited time weapon character and all those banners, right? But we aren't done yet, because relatively recently, the devs introduced a new type of banner called the Chronicled Wish. This one is very unique and has some individual mechanics, so let's also talk about this right here. First of all, so far this Chronicled Wish banner has only occurred once and appears to not be involved in every single update. So let's take the last one as an example to talk about the mechanics. The thought behind the Chronicled Wish is that they're going to feature characters and weapons that haven't been featured on the limited time banner or are just limited to the standard banner to give you the chance to have a more dedicated and targeted approach onto getting that item that you really want. So what you can get out of the Chronicled Wish is all the 5-star items that are listed on the Wish page, those including a select amount of 4-star weapons and characters, as well as 5-star weapons and characters too. In addition, those characters that are featured seem to all be themed by regional topics. So for example, in the last one, we only had Mondstadt characters, those being Eula, Mona, Albedo, Cleed, Yuluk, and Jean. And also there are the rules that only those characters can be featured that are either on the standard banner or those that haven't been on the limited time banner for a long time. Now, with that being said, let's talk about the pulling mechanics. First of all, the pity with the Chronicled Wish works the same way as on character banners. Soft pity at 70, hard pity at 90. Then we also have the 50-50 mechanic, of course. However, in contrast to the character banners, here, when you lose your 50-50, you're not automatically guaranteed to get the 5-star of your choice next time. Instead, you will get 1 fate point, just like with the weapon banner, and then you're guaranteed to get the 5-star next time with that 1 fate point. However, you need to remember, just like with the weapon banners, fate points do not carry over, meaning if you lose your 50-50 on the Chronicled Wish, then when the next Chronicled Wish comes around the corner, you will start with 0 fate points again. Meaning it is incredibly important that you save up enough pulls to get that 5-star of your choice, because otherwise you're gonna lose your fate points. One thing that is also different here is that when you select which item is the one that you want from the banner, if you lose your 50-50, you're guaranteed to get at least the same type of item as that 5-star. If you select a character that you want and then you lose your 50-50, you'll not get a weapon, you'll get another one of the 5-star characters. And if you select a weapon and then you lose your 50-50, you'll at least get another 5-star weapon. One thing that I want to make sure that you absolutely take away from this video is that whenever you're pulling on banners, be very careful when fate points are involved, because those do not carry over to the next banner. Your pity does carry over on all the types of banners. Your 50-50 status does carry over on character-based banners, the standard and the limited time one, but your fate points on the weapon banner or the Chronicled Wish do not carry over to the next one, so you might be wasting a ton of Primogems here if you don't do it correctly. And before we end the video, I want to talk about another relatively controversial topic, and that is quote-unquote farming pity. See, in my time on this channel, I've done quite some banner analysis, and sometimes I say things like, oh, there are a ton of nice 4-star characters on this banner, so if you're on low pity, you might want to consider pulling a couple of times on the banner just for the 4 stars while building up pity for the next banner. And whenever I say things like that, I get angry comments. So let me make one thing very, very clear for you. Pity does carry over to the next banner. There are people who will tell you this is not the case, but this is plain wrong, because if it really was the case that the devs tell you pity carries over and then it does not carry over, then these would be objectively illegal business practices and they would probably be torn to court for this. However, I do agree that quote-unquote farming pity can be quite problematic, and that is if you don't have any self-control. However, and I want to make this very clear, if you have self-control and if you know what you're doing, then it is an absolutely justifiable and legitimate decision to invest a couple pulls on a banner where you actually don't want to have the 5-star, just in hopes of getting the 4 stars, because you know this pity is going to carry over to the next one, where it will help you get to the desired 5-star faster. And this is probably the most important message of the entire video, if you know yourself well enough that you can say, well, I don't have that self-control, if I start pulling, I go all in, then please, by all means, do not farm pity, because it will end up bad for you. And if you now want to know how to get tons of Primogems to buy more wishes for all the banners that you want, then definitely don't miss out this guide right here. We see each other, hopefully in the next one, and until then, as always, travel smart.